right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 338 of the Restoring Report podcast. I'm super excited for the content we got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way, according to God's design, and spend as much of their lives as possible together. And if that's you, you're not going to find a better show than this, because I'm talking directly to you every single week, twice a week on Thursday and Sunday, about the season that you're in and trying to help you basically move towards your goal of spending more time with your spouse and having the best marriage you can possibly have in your future. And so I'm excited to say, if you guys don't know, that I got married at the age of 24, which is about 4 or 5 years younger than the national average age of first marriage for men in this country today. And so I did get married young by national standards. Now, I think I got married older by the specific, according to the standards of the specific area that I'm in, because a lot of people here get married, 21, 22, 23, and I think that is a better age to get married. In fact, I think 18 to 21 is a great age to get married. That's the age that I would have chosen to get married if I had met my spouse a little earlier than I did. And again, there's nothing you can do if you don't meet your spouse early in life. Then there's really nothing you can do to expedite the process. But what you can do is make sure you're searching for a spouse because God's probably throwing a lot of options your way, and it's your job to make a wise choice. And so, hopefully, I'm going to be able to help you do that today. And something that you're going to need to be able to do once you step across the line of commitment with a woman and you enter into the rest of your life with her, is you're going to need to be able to, confidently put her mind at ease as far as the level of commitment you're bringing to the table. She needs to know, 1,000,000% that you're not going anywhere, no matter what. And today I'm going to kind of talk about one way you can do that. Because a lot of people today, and I'm sure you've met these kind of people, guys, like they come into the relationship with baggage. They come in with a history of seeing a man or a woman let them down over and over and over. And perhaps they've been kind of abandoned on the battlefield or dumped, or, they've been broken up with a lot over and over and over. And they're used to being they're kind of used to being abandoned by the opposite sex. And it's very, very sad, but something you're going to need to be able to do is you're going to need to confidently and calmly reassure them and just make your position clear. And again, if you can't make your position clear, if you're not confident in your ability to stick around with this woman for the rest of your life, then I would say, please do not enter any type of defined and committed long-term romantic relationship with her. If you're just still discovering whether or not you would like to spend the rest of your life with this woman, then again, please do not enter that. Just keep going on dates, getting to know her as a person, spending time together. But once you know, then you need to shoot straight with her, and you need to enter the committed relationship and make it clear to her that you're never leaving. And she needs to feel that, One way you can do that, especially after you even marry this woman, is by taking the D word off the table, as Brett McKay would say. We're going to read an article today by Brett and Kate McKay. He published it on September 10th of 2024, and he entitled his article, "Take the D Word Off the Table." The D word obviously being divorce, okay? And I'm going to kind of make the case to you today that the divorce word should be kind of treated as a cuss word in your marriage. It's something that you should never say. It's something that does not do anything of value for the union. It's something that detracts the quality of life from both a man and woman when it is said. It is something that sabotages the strength of a connection. It's something that sabotages a couple's confidence in one another. And it's something that sows discord in a union. There is nothing good about using the word divorce in any type of context, other than when you're, defining it or referring to it as a social issue or something like that. You should never bring up the divorce word as a potential possibility in your own marriage. And today I'm going to kind of make the case for you as to why that is, alongside Brett McKay here, who's going to interview well, he has interviewed before, a guy named Brad Wilcox, who is an associate or a professor of sociology at the University of Virginia, or at least he was. He's also the author of a book called Get Married. And as you might assume from the title, it is a book about lots of reasons why couples, and especially young people, need to be, well, not even especially, just people need to be pursuing the goal of marriage today and not, neglecting it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and see why Brett says you should never use the D word and why it should leave your vocabulary in your marriage. Because, and what, again, one of the big reasons I think needs to be the case is because your partner needs to be absolutely and totally confident in your ability to stick around pre and post marriage. And one of the ways you can do that is by making it clear that in your relationship, divorce is not an option. Breaking up is not an option. Separation is not an option. Once you step across that committed line, and I'm not just talking marriage, I'm talking like once you have the conversation with a woman of, these are my intentions with you, I am not leaving. If you would like to enter this committed relationship with me, let's proceed. If you're not where I am, let's not do it. But I'm just being honest with you and telling you where I am. And you've made your opinion clear to her parents. And you're saying, I one day want to marry you, and this is us starting our journey to that goal, and I'm not going to abandon that goal. Like basically saying, once we start dating, we're getting married one day. Treating dating more as like an engagement instead of an experiment of whether or not you want to marry someone, I think is a good idea. But he says, in a famous study done a couple of decades ago, researchers wanted to see whether the proximity and salience of a food influenced how much of it was consumed. Jars were filled with candy and placed in an office. Some of them were put directly on workers' desks. Others were placed 6 feet away from them. Some of the containers were opaque. Some were transparent. When the study's results were tallied, it was found that people reached into jars more often filled when the candy was visible, and especially when the jars were close at hand. It seems as though the more often you're presented with an option, the more you think about it, and the more you think about an option, the more likely you are to exercise it. This dynamic likely extends beyond food consumption, maybe even to marriage. When the sociologist Brad Wilcox came on the podcast to talk about the extensive research he's done on marriage, he discussed some of the habits and qualities shared by the happiest and most thriving couples. One of them, he said, is a strong commitment that manifests itself in not putting the D word in a conversation when you're having an argument or there's some problem in your marriage. I think this is brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And this is not just something that you should try. This is what Brad Wilcox calls something that thriving couples don't do. So if you're aiming to have a thriving marriage, if you want to have a strong bond, a strong connection with your partner, then this is something that you're not going to want to do. Because strong couples, it's a trend, don't do this. Strong couples do not bring up the divorce word in arguments. Because to them, an argument is not a reason to end a marriage. It's rather an opportunity to strengthen connection by enduring the trying fires of hardship together and emerging on the other side stronger than before, and with the knowledge that trials are not something that tore you apart. Because sadly for a lot of people, trials are something that tear them apart. And it's not because they're just simply victim to a trial that is beyond what they can handle. It's that they made the choice to allow external problems to tear them apart. They gave problems the power to separate and dissolve their union that they swore in front of God and people would never end until the day they died. If you want a marriage that lasts, there are going to be lots of problems in your 60 years, 80 years of life with this person. And so, you're going to have to be able to weather stuff. If you can't weather stuff, you're not going to have anything that lasts. And so treating and understanding problems and difficulties and struggles not as something that could potentially end your marriage, but as something that could help your marriage grow and progress and strengthen your connection with your partner is a big thing. And like Brad Wilcox says, thriving couples don't think of divorce as an option. They do not bring up the D word in conversation when they're having a fight. Again, treat divorce like a cuss word. There should be no good time to use it. It's something that does damage when it is used to a union, when it is, used in such a way that it's like a threat. Like, it's brought up when there's a problem or a circumstance that's uncomfortable and people bring up the divorce word. That's doing nothing but harm to your marriage, because you're communicating to your partner, I'm here only insofar as I'm comfortable, and I'm here only insofar as, you're willing to do what I say in this situation, or I'm here only insofar as we can make this work. What they're not saying when they say that is, I'm here forever, no matter what, just like I said on the day I gave you my vows. And of course, it's wrong to go back on your vows. I mean, because you communicated to this person your intentions to take care of them for the rest of his or her life. And so you've got to be able to stick around. Again, in his book, Get Married, Wilcox notes that in the State of Our Union survey, husbands and wives who reported that marriage is for life, unless there is abuse or adultery, were more likely to say that they were significantly satisfied, very happy in their marriages, compared to those husbands and wives who said that marriage is for as long as you feel fulfilled. Wilcox note that these results may be correlative rather than casual, given that men and women in happier marriages may be more likely to embrace an ethic of marital permanence due to the higher quality of their marriages. But he cites other research that has found similar results when couples are not asked about the state of their marriage at the moment, but are tracked over time. And it's particularly this sentence right here is what stands out to me. Marriage being something that lasts as long as you're feeling fulfilled is a surefire way to have a marriage that ends rather than lasts. Because again, trials are going to come. You're not always going to feel fulfilled. There are a lot of things that are going to be difficult. And so if you think of those things as, giants that you face together as a partner that could potentially be strong enough to tear you apart, your marriage is going to fail. Because there are lots of things in life that are extremely hard. I know people who have lost a child, and that's really, made their marriage difficult. I know people who have, there's been an infidelity, or there's been a pornography addiction, or there's been a lack of emotional availability and presence, or there's been, just consistent patterns of disrespect, or all these things are going to, and even just feeling and perceiving those things, whether or not they're true, are struggles in your marriage that could happen. Or, even smaller things like financial stresses. My point is, there are going to be giants that you have to face as a marriage couple. And if you look at those problems, those giants, as enemies of the union, and as something that you're going to defeat no matter how difficult, and something that you're not going to allow to tear you apart, your marriage has a much better chance of lasting. He says, when a couple's expectation is that marriage is forever, it influences how they interact, especially when inevitable tensions arise. As Wilcox noted on the podcast, most couples have problems at some point in their marriage, and I think couples who just keep divorce out of the picture are more readily able to handle those challenges and overcome them. And this is certainly true in my own experience. I've been in relationships with people where I felt confident in the relationship's ability to last a lifetime. And I've been in relationships with people where I did not feel confident in the relationship's ability to last a lifetime. And I can assure you, I was much more at peace when I was confident in the relationship's ability to last. Because let me tell you what's going to happen if you're not sure of your partner's ability to stick around or not. You're going to walk on eggshells around them forever. You're not going to say anything that could potentially, hurt them, even if it's something, or even make them uncomfortable, even if it's a problem that needs to be solved for the sake of the union. You're not going to address it because you would rather keep them comfortable so that they don't leave. Because ultimately, this person could leave me. I really don't know if they're all in or not. And so everything you do, every action you take is basically trying to keep them from leaving, because you're accommodating for a lack of surety and a lack of assurance that they have not given you, And so you're trying to make up for that. And it's a really scary place to be, because you never know, you never feel certain, you never feel secure. There's always this hollow doubt of, whether or not this person will be with you forever, whether or not they can actually stick it out. And again, of course, the reason is that feeling is there for a good reason, because they likely have not communicated it to you. And so if they haven't communicated it to you, this is not somebody that you want to be in any type of lasting relationship with. And that's why I just so strongly encourage you guys to make sure you match your partner's investment, interest, and commitment levels prior to entering a relationship. And you make sure your partner matches you, and that you can both confidently say, we are never leaving this, and there is no issue that will tear us apart. We're going to make it through. We're going to work this out. And whatever comes up, we will take on together as a team. That needs to be clear. Okay. The more often that the option of divorce is raised during arguments, the more salient it becomes, increasing the likelihood that an option one day may be exercised, that option. And raising the specter of divorce simply makes the interaction more fraught. It prompts questions like, are we compatible? Which, by the way, is a question that you should have answered prior to entering the defined and committed relationship with this person. Questions like, is this unraveling? Can we go on? All questions that you should have decided the outcome to prior to entering a marriage or even a defined relationship. He says, if there's an escape hatch lurking in the background, a feeling that this whole thing could potentially be temporary, then there's less of an impulse to dig in and solve the problem at hand. That is totally correct. I'm going to read that again. If there is an escape hatch lurking in the background of your relationship, a feeling that this whole thing could potentially be temporary, then there's less of an impulse to dig in and solve the problem at hand, because you have another way out, right? You have a way out that you perceive to maybe be easier when weighing it in your mind than solving the problem with your person. And that is a surefire way to never have a relationship that lasts a lifetime. Because if you have a way out that's easy, a way of, avoiding the difficulties of solving a problem with your partner, a way of escape from doing a hard thing that would lead to a better marriage, then you're probably, in your selfish human nature, going to take that thing, or at least entertain the idea of taking it. And therefore your partner's confidence in your ability to stick around will suffer. And that will impact your marriage in so many different ways. Like if two people are unsure of one another's ability to stick around, every conversation they have will be it feels like you're on the edge of a knife. And, it feels so fragile and so delicate, and the connection feels so disruptible by any small thing, because one person is constantly worried about the other's ability to stick around, okay? And the other person is trying to figure out whether or not they want to stick around. So everything is a farce. Everything is a pretense. Everything is a display. Everything is, a show, a performance. It's not a interaction between two people who really enjoy spending time with one another. So yeah, please don't treat marriage like an experiment. Please don't treat any type of romantic connection as an experiment. Please treat it as a commitment. He says couples that say that their incorrigible or irreconcilable differences make divorce the only option, but their differences may have become irreconcilable because divorce was made an option. That is also true. Because, once you enter the committed relationship, there should be no such thing as an irreconcilable difference, because you should have gotten all of that out of the way when you made your marriage vows and basically said, no matter what, I'm in this, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, for richer, for poorer, forsaking all others, I will be faithful only to you until death takes me. And you're saying this before God and man. I mean, this is a very serious vow. And so there's no room there for irreconcilable differences. There's no room there for extenuating circumstances. There's no room there for ifs or buts. It's a statement. It's a commitment. It's a promise. It's a vow that you make. And so when you give somebody your word, you just keep it, guys. There isn't something magical or superstitious in making divorce the thing that should not be named as the idiom. Speaking of the wolf, and he is at your door, not raising divorce as an option won't guarantee an enduring and happy marriage, but when the practice is indicative of one's underlying stance toward the relationship, a rock-solid commitment to making your marriage last, it's something that helps give you the best possible shot at doing just that. And I agree. This is no guarantee. Just by erasing the D word from your vocabulary and your relationship, that does not guarantee marital or relational success. But what it does do is that is an indication that your marriage will last based on other couples. Like people who have, like Brad Wilcox said, lasting marriages do not use the D word on average, most of the time. Okay. And so if you want to emulate that, if that's your ultimate vision, if your ultimate vision is having a marriage that lasts and keeping your word, keeping your vows that you made to your wife, then I think this is something that you're going to want to do. And again, I would say it's something that you probably already know you should do, because if you say that you're going to stay with someone for the rest of your life, then do it, man. Do it. What's your other option? You know, breaking someone's heart and going back on your word. That's your other option. Okay. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just, when I said my vows, guys, you can go back and listen to my vows on this podcast. I forget what episode number it is, but I have the whole recording of my wedding on this podcast. It's one of the most precious episodes that I have. And I like shout my vows. Like, I don't say I'm quiet, man, because I wanted the room to know. I wanted the room to hear in order to be able to hold me accountable and understand what I was saying. I don't like it when I go to weddings and the most important part of the ceremony, the exchange of vows, is quiet and I can't hear what's being said. That's like the biggest pet peeve of mine at a wedding. And I understand people are quiet, but like, at least try to mic them, you know, because this is a big deal. This is like a huge, huge promise that someone is making. And by saying it in front of God and people, you're asking to be held accountable, socially accountable. So for example, if I were to, which I would never do this, but if I were to, come up with some issue that is in my marriage and try to use that issue as an excuse to leave my marriage, I would have like 50 people messaging me saying, "Hey man, what's going on? Because I heard you say this on your wedding day. I heard you say that no matter what, you were committed to making sure this relationship lasts until the day you die. So why are you backing out now? Why are you backing out now?" And there's that social accountability. Like, you gave this woman your word here. And I wanted people to be able to do that for me, because I wanted to make it clear. I wanted everybody, including my wife, including everyone in the congregation, to know that I was serious about this and that I knew what I was saying and that I was totally invested and committed in the outcome of this marriage and following through on what I said. So just say your vows loud, man. That's my biggest advice to you as a marriage couple, as a couple who's going to get married or, moving towards that goal together. Just when you hit the altar, man, and the officiant asks you, do you take this man or do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, and goes through the vows process with you, you need to give a firm "I do." And when you exchange vows, you need to give a firm "I do." Like make it resound, because again, if you want a good connection with your partner, that person has to be totally, totally confident in your ability to stick around for the long haul. Remove the word divorce from your vocabulary. Divorce is not, it's a cuss word now. Don't ever say that to a woman you're in committed relationship to again. Okay? Don't ever say that to a man you're in relationship with again. A marriage, romantic relationship. Don't ever say that to him. These are words that should be banned from existence, and not just the words, but the phrases like "if this works out," or, "we'll see what happens," or other phrases of powerlessness like that make it seem like you have no choice in whether or not your marriage succeeds. Those phrases are profane. They are profane. They are sacrilegious to the holy. They're taking the vow that you made before God and man and making it, null and void. And that you should never use those phrases in your marriage, in your relationship. And let's think about what happens if you do. What happens if you do? What happens if you say, if you adopt passive attitudes like this, like, "We'll see if it works out. As long as this doesn't happen, I'll love you and stay with you forever," or conditional statements, if-then statements. If those are coming up in your relationship, what that's doing is that's sowing seeds of doubt in your partner's mind of whether or not you have what it takes to stick around forever. And you're not going to be able to have a fruitful and loving and intimate and peerless connection with your partner if you're wondering if they'll stick around or not. That's square one. It all goes back to square one. Like how to have a happy marriage. Number one, you got to be confident in your partner's ability to stick around forever. Square one. Nothing kind of, that's the foundation from which you build everything else. So it's like, how do you have a happy marriage? Using kind words with one another, staying on each other's team, never fighting in front of others, having frequent sexual encounters with each other, having frequent quality time with each other, having cuddle time with each other, doing things that you like together, going on frequent dates. None of that is even, all of that comes after. All that comes after. All the tips that you have for a healthy marriage come after settling in your mind, beyond the shadow of a doubt, the firm understanding that your partner is in it with you forever, for the long haul, no matter what, until death do you part. That's the square one. And this is why I talk about this so much on the show. And I feel like I kind of harp on it, but you've got to have square one before you go to square two. Okay. You can't have a good marriage by doing like squares, by doing steps 2 through 36 and skipping step 1. You've got to have that foundation. Okay. You've got to have that foundation. Whew. What God has joined together, let no man separate. Yeah. That's square one. That's square one, man. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Hope it's given you some food for thought and some direction for your future marriage. Guys, in your future marriage, tell your partner that the divorce word, the D word, is not going to be acceptable, that it's going to be a cuss word, that you're not going to say it in fights. If you make that clear to your partner, that will do nothing but strengthen your marriage. I hope you've enjoyed listening today. If you have, reach out and let me know what your thoughts were through the link in the show notes. Actually, it's not there anymore. Message me on Instagram and Facebook, and we will have a conversation there. I would love to hear from you. It would make me feel super connected to you as an audience member, and it would make this podcasting system two-way. Go ahead and comment in the YouTube show notes now if you think removing the D word from the vocabulary of a marriage would be helpful. I would love to hear from you there as well. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and I will talk to you all next time.